Hello everybody, it's Friday night and it is Weekender time once more. And on this week's show, we've got fighting Irish, fighting aliens, fighting robots, and probably fighting each other as well. On top of all of that, we have a big bumper prize of fighting dwarves from store.ontabletop.com. If you want to be in with a chance to win a Leagues of Votann starter army for Warhammer 40,000, then you need to be a subscriber to the YouTube channel. Pop a comment below, and if you can share us about and all that other stuff as well, that helps us out an awful lot. Otherwise, sit back, relax, let the fighting commence, because your weekend starts here. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekender. I'm joined this week by John, Justin and Warren. Yay! How are yous? Hopefully not tired this late on a Friday night.
Fabulous.
Long week.
Feeling fabulous. I've got my wee pal Justin back, looking all like Saruman there. Saruman with a wee shiny head. So I'm in a much better place now. But we're all exhausted, so we're actually going to take next weekend off to spend with our families.
Hunting for Easter eggs.
So we are actually going to take Easter off. There'll be no Weekenders next week. And you will all be on a chocolate coma anyway at home, so don't be worrying.
Hang on. I mean, they'll be on a sugar rush. Twitching and going, where is it?
Yeah, so we're
crash.
Nothing next week. Nothing at all at next weekend anyway. And I'm going to run a huge Easter egg hunt here for my little ones to go out and then basically watch them all vomit and chocolate everywhere and all that there.
Don't hide them on the motorway, Warren.
It's good to have a plan, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's all good. It's all good. How have you dudes been?
Just
you had a good week?
Getting back into the swing of things, working from home, doing the editing from here for the first wee while until my stamina's back up.
It's all about working on the stamina.
You do your best to get it up, Justin, okay? We're all rooting for you. So we are. Dudes, it's Spring Clean Challenge, okay?
Spring has spranged.
Spring has sprang, and oh my God, I caught the bug this year.
Really?
I totally caught the bug this year.
Not COVID again.
No, the Spring Clean Challenge bug. I'm actually finally starting to feel reconnected into the hobby and some of the bits. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna have to get Snag and Normie going shortly as well. It's all starting to flood back to me now.
It's all coming back. We remember what the world was like before.
I'm telling you, man, my little ones went to their first fun fair this week. Well, Savannah had been to a fun fair, but it was the first fun fair for Jack. He's 5. He's never been to a fun fair. So we took him to his first fun fair this week, and he had an absolute blast. Me, not so much. I enjoyed shooting the air rifle. It was no problem, but it was $350 a go, and you were basically, you having to pay for the prizes, which wasn't great. And then I was told by a woman that I was too fat to go on to the ghost train. No, you don't go on. No, you don't go on. You go on, but you take that tiny one. No, well, the tiny one doesn't want to go with me. He wants to go with his mother. Well, no, this is the only way I make it work. You go with tiny one. No, I can't go with the tiny one. I'll go with my daughter. No, you too big go with her. You have to go with tiny one. No, he doesn't want to go with me. Well, then that's the only way I can make it work. For all it took to put me in a car of my own,
you'd have been round. Just
I know.
Here's
I love ghost trains. I don't know if people know this, but it's one of my quirks. Is I absolutely adore ghost trains. Love them.
Well, I love them. Do you remember the Wallace and Gromit one we went on in Blackpool?
Yes. You just said,
yeah,
I know. I'm just grinning from ear to ear, and it's all thanks to Jimmy Savile. So.
Makes sense.
I don't know if it was Jimmy Savile, but way back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was one of those shows where they had a ghost train and they had some dude dressed as Dracula. And as the kids were going through the ghost train, the car would stop. And then this dude dressed as Dracula would sit down in the ghost train car beside them, and they would crap themselves.
I wonder how many times that guy got punched in the face.
I think it was a Noel's house party thing.
It could have been a Noel's house party thing.
Was it Noel's house party, or was it the kids one, the fun house?
I don't know.
The fun house, not the obstacle course one with all the guns.
Get your own back
too, though.
Yeah, but whatever it was, I've always loved ghost trains. So we came away from the fun fair, and I was ghost trainless, and my kids were mortified for me, and they were going, "That wasn't fair." I said, "Look, kids, it's my own fault, dudes. It's like if I was half the size, the woman wouldn't be giving me grief. So don't you worry. I will go and have some burgers as a consolation prize here." So I was like,
helpful option. Helpful, healthy option.
I need to get my life back on track. Burgers and hobby.
But I have, I digress. Basically, I've been getting back into the Spring Clean Challenge. And it's funny I should mention ghost trains because I have a number of stalled projects, you might say. Okay?
A number of.
Yes, like many, I am a hobby butterfly, and I will jump from one project to the next until such times as something comes across me, and I think to myself, I'm going to get that one done. One of my ambitions, you all know I love fantasy armies, okay? And now you know I love ghost trains, okay? So one of the things I've always wanted was a Army of the Dead kind of army, right? Inspired by Armies of Darkness of Bruce Campbell fame.
Knew that was coming.
Okay, so lots of skeletons and stuff like that there, I actually am quite weird that way in that I am not a massive fan of mixing my monsters too much. Okay, so I don't particularly like mixing my werewolves or even my Draculas into my undead armies. Even the Draculas is a slightly better fit, but I'm a bit, so I like the purity of it. Okay, and you all know that all of my fantasy armies now are completely agnostic to rules. I just build shit I like the look of, and I think it would look great in the table, and I think would be fun to play. So, in the past, I had a couple of boxes of Night Haunts because of all the Age of Sigmar stuff that I wasn't particularly fussed on, they were gorgeous. Okay. One of the most beautiful sets of models, albeit delicate and not built for my hands, and the effing and Jeff and I have done trying to put them together, and the number of bits that have broken off them during this whole process, but they are gorgeous models. I had a bucket of them sitting, and I decided I was just going to, if you go to the second picture, there's some of basically I just had a bunch of them that I had primed with like a gray sear. I'd loosely attached them to the base because I'd always planned to put them onto my own 2P 3D printed bases. So I just I thought to myself, do you know what, I'm going to do that. But the other thing that I've always wanted to do was to build a skeleton army. So I thought, right, ghosts and skeletons, that will go together. That will work well. So Wargames Atlantic to the rescue, and a couple of mystery sprues that I had lying around that I had no idea what they were, but I think they've turned out to be Games Workshop sprues. Sprues, yes.
Freudian slip.
Yes.
Well, you know if they were Warlord games because I think all the legs were separate and the hips were separate and the torsos were separate because I built a set of them.
Please no.
And I was never so happy to see classic fantasy skeletons come out from Games Atlantic.
Yes.
Never was like, oh, they've got one body. Grand.
I have really liked these. Now, I was worried that they were all going to be too Greek, but they're not. Okay. I don't use the Greek heads. I haven't used the Greek shields. So as Greek as they get is kind of the bows.
Yeah.
The bows would be as Greek as they get. But to be fair, they're a fairly fantasy short bow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
recurve short bow, you're fine. You're good to go.
Yeah, and you're spear.
Now the Skellies, I actually think that the Skellies turn out even better than the ones on the box. So I basically opened the box and I started clipping. And oh boy, did I start clipping. So this is an interesting project in that I'm double dunting this. So I'm doing a lot of role playing with my children. My youngest boy, who's 5, suddenly something clicked and he wanted to Dungeons and Dragons. So I've been RPGing with my kids and we're working through an undead scenario at the moment with lots of skeletons and stuff. So I thought I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I'll make these skeletons army, but I'll make the skeletons so I can actually use them in the RPG that I'm playing. So I have some skeleton shamblers. So they're just skellies with no weapons. I have lightly weaponized skellies with just swords, and then I have heavier skellies with swords and shields and some armor.
Bat armor stuff.
Pieces.
Just as well Lloyd's in another country. He'd be freaking out right now.
Yeah, he'd be.
Bat armor. Can't be having it.
Bat armor. It has to be bat armor. So then the bases are my legendary by now 2P bases. So they're 3D printed. That little slot at the bottom is where you glue a 2P. And it makes, for someone that has the clumsiness that I have, so it basically is a dyspraxia. I can't not drop stuff. I just drop stuff left, right, and center. But I find that if it has a bit of weight to it,
it's like a Weeble, the lower center of gravity, less likely to.
That and the fact that I'm able to, if it has weight to it, I feel more confident moving it around. I don't know what it is, but this is just how I'm programmed. So that bunch of little gravestones, cork, and bicarbonate of soda with a great big dollop of super glue. Big problems on the super glue market, boys. Gotta tell you.
Yeah.
Poundland pre-pandemic, 5 super glues for £1.
Yep.
Poundland post-pandemic, post-war, post-everybody sticking the arm in, 2 super glues for £1.
It's inflation for you.
Not happy about that.
There's inflation. That's one that the Office for National Statistics should be basing their inflation basket on. How many super glues out of Poundland for £1?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I remember going in there at times and picking up maybe 10 packs of 5 and just shamefacedly going up to the counter going, I swear it's for work. I am not huffing the fumes.
So this is the paint scheme that I went for my night hunts at the end of the day. The basing and all's not done. The wee gravestones aren't done. I'm going to try. John was taking me through a tip for doing the gravestones using a toothbrush. Now I haven't started trying that yet, but that will be going to cover up the models and then flick some paint at the gravestones to try and give it that kind of wee lichen-y kind of effect. Oh, yeah. Have you ever done a jerry can on how to do that kind of thing?
I have.
Yeah. Yes? Okay.
The way I did it, and it might be more than you can be arsed with. I don't know. But I used pigment powders. And so I threw a regular wash on, like an Agrax or Null or whatever, on the stonework. And then I mixed pigment powders with rubbing alcohol and sprayed them on with a toothbrush, and the alcohol repels the wash and then wicks away very quickly, and it gives a really nice lichen thing. So I just sit there with a yellow and a white going flick, 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 flick.
Is that on the jerry can?
Yeah. I did it on some Fugu buildings.
Right. If any of you at home don't know what jerry can is the world famous series where if anyone can, Jerry can.
Jerry can.
So if you hop it, I tell you what, next week, okay, because we don't have a weekender,
yes,
can we put that Jerry can out on Friday night so as everybody can see Jerry flicking toothbrushes?
Flicking.
The only thing that would need to be done is the project file to be found and it rendered out in 1080p to go up to YouTube.
Grand. I'm sure everybody needed to know that. A simple yes would have done. Right. Anyway, so the little dudes, okay, they're painted with a moot green. Then after the moot green, I hit them with a hex flame. And then after the hex flame, I dry brush them with a weird light minty green. Oh, it's so minty.
The weird light minty green.
A weird light minty green. And it's a nice simple
green. That one.
That's the one. That is it. It's plaster green.
See, I pay attention to what you're doing.
Yes. Oh. So so I've the gravestones to do, and I have the final bit of basing to do, but I'm happy enough with that. I like that kind of green, haunted, ghosty kind of a thing. So
Scooby-Doo ghosts.
It is the Scooby-Doo ghosts. And for me, look, Sprinkling Challenge is about ticking a box for me, about getting something out and done. And I've reached a stage in my life that done is better than perfect.
Yes.
You know, done is even better than good in my opinion these days. You know, I'm happy with it. It's easy to do. If it was any more complex than this, it would probably not get done. I'll be honest. So I'm just keeping it simple. And I'm getting it done, so as I can chuck an army on the table or chuck a few minis on the table for a bit of role playing.
As my father would say, it's not just good; it's good enough.
It's good enough. Absolutely. So, this is my final little bit of basing, other than the rimming. I haven't done the rimming or the gravestones on this one yet either. But just to give it a little bit of a little bit of
dead
grassy, tough kind of a thing. So as you can see, there's no rocket science to a lot of this, but I tell you what, it ain't half satisfying to look at it.
The basing, that realistic basing with the really weird green for the ghost, just does something. It does something that makes me smile, because the basing looks realistic and the rest of it is just so abstract.
It's so Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
it is. It is really Scooby-Doo. I think the next picture is the Skellies and how they're turning out as well. Nice.
And these
happy Skellies.
In contrast to the ghosts, these look a lot more grounded, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because some of my ghosts are actually pulling Skellies out of the ground, which is kind of cool. So I hadn't thought about a rule. Not those ones, but there's big swirly ones somewhere, and they're pulling ghosts out.
Well, I suppose you've got things like this here.
Yeah. But no, I've so far so good, and it's turning into quite a sizable army, because I'm about to do another big batch of Skellies just to fill out. I did enough to do my RPG work, and now I'm going to go back in and fill them out with some big ass units of Skelly Bobs. Really
it's interesting that you chose like a bronzy color for all the weapon blades.
Yes, well,
super rust.
It was just because I happened to have it and it was easy and it was fast, and it didn't require much effort at all. This is real low effort stuff, guys. You know, it's like the flash of red, the only fabric color in the whole army will be red. So just flashes of red here and there. All of the metallics are basically, that kind of bronzy kind of a color. I might hit the sword edges with a little bit of a dry brush, a flick of the silver for a flash of the blade kind of effect.
Remember, though, if you do it on one, you got to do it on all.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm in no panic. I'm in no panic whatsoever. It's but it all inspired me so much that I decided to do a wee bit of 3D printing, because it's the other part of the hobby that I have now neglected for 2 and a bit years. We all talk about the 3D printing, but I hadn't actually done any 3D printing. And I'd had a nice 3D printer that I bought myself, but I had so many failures with it that I gave up. I never turned it on. So I thought to myself, do you know what? This army deserves some cool stuff. So I have a wee collection of models that from printablescenery.com. Still one of my favorites of all the 3D printer dudes out there. Those guys are still one of my favorites. And this is their battering ram. So I thought to myself, make these guys kind of siegey. That whole Army of Darkness thing again, where they're attacking the castle. So I thought, I'll work on the siege kind of stuff. So this was printed on my FDM, which is a Corality CR10S Pro. I think that's it. It's a decent sized bed Creality. And I had all the same problems I had when I switched it off 2.5 years ago. But the difference this time was Spring Clean Challenge made me think, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to go in and research it. And it is interesting that whenever you actually do start to read about why prints fail, it's not for the reasons that I thought. I thought it was to do with the nozzle height from the bed, but it was more to do with temperatures and things like that. And some materials are just not nice to print with, like ABS, for example. ABS does not want to stick to the bed. So I have a couple of rolls of ABS if anybody wants them. I just went right back to PLA again. So,
well, sure. You remember, Warren, we actually used to have like a spray glue that we would spray onto the bed.
Hairspray would do that. Yeah, hairspray would do that. So far for the Army of the Dead, okay, I printed 2 of them big wheeled catapulty kind of jobbies, ball launchers.
Yeah.
I printed a battering ram, and I printed some, what are they called? Scorpions? Them kind of
bolt throwers, ballistic,
Romanesque bolt thrower kind of things. Yeah. And my prints were okay. I also found these cool little bolts that are flying through with flames. I'm going to paint them green so that the bolt throwers are actually have the option to do some magic flames as well. So
magical damage,
magic kind of bolts. So I'm looking at them now. It's difficult to see in white how they've turned out. And look, they're not. It's not like a resin print. Let's be honest about that. It's not like a resin print. But for me, hey, I'm happy enough with it. I'm happy enough with it. Yeah. As you'll see a wee bit later on, I've actually chucked some paint on them, and literally chucked paint on them. So right, where are we at? So there's more skellies,
shamblers, and
yes, there's my shamblers.
In fact, I think some of these may be
duplicates.
That might be duplicates. Yep. Yeah. So if we go across, the other thing, yes, whirlwinds, tornadoes.
It's a twister. So
we were talking about a body for a commander for the army. Still haven't settled on one yet, but I think I have found a cool 3D model that I might go with, right? But we had talked about him being on a kind of like a tornado and stuff. But then I thought to myself, actually, I haven't decided who's going to do it yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to print some tornadoes and paint them up green so they're ghost tornadoes and use them as magic spells with the army. So that these tornadoes are kind of launched out. And I'm just going to give them rules, something similar to, is it Goblin Fanatics from back in the day? Do you know the wee ones that with the wee balls?
Oh, yeah, the
balls spun around and went in random directions and stuff like that.
And then goblins.
And then would deal unholy damage to anyone. There was, going back to, it was in multiple editions, but I remember first edition fantasy, a spell called Wind of Death. And depending on how high a level your necromancer was how just completely ridiculous it was. And I was at a tournament and a fella set up like 4 necromancers at the back of the board, and that was his army. All his points had gone into those. He then spammed Wind of Death, and then 2 turns before people arrived, he just raised an entire army for free. It was unholy filth. I had to pause there momentarily and work out what word I could
Would
use.
you believe that finding a tornado to print is actually not easy at all? No. There are very few of them out there. I found one. And all 4 of those models are warps of that one, where I went in and rescaled and flipped its x-axis and done all sorts of things to give me 3 or 4 different kind of looking whirlwinds. If you're wondering what the wee dots are, okay, what I've noticed is, so I'm using this PEI kind of plate. Andrea bought it for me for a present because I had managed to
pie plate
cut myself. The other plate, the print stuck to it so well, you could never get them off. And I had to go in with a scraper. I managed to slice my hand and stuff. And I said, right, enough of that. Is there nothing better out there? And I said, well, this PIE or PEI stuff, when the print cools, it just slides off. But when the bed's hot, it stays stuck. So it was great. But it's not infallible. And what I found is if you're printing a tall print, okay, the print can start to wobble and lift off the bed. So all these little dots are actually whirlwinds reduced down to 0.01 of a millimeter, okay,
to give it something to key to,
placed on it to expand the raft that the whole thing is printed on, so as to give it the stability. See, I learned another thing.
Clever. So, and you can go ahead and use that for basing up a swamp or forest base.
I never thought of that. There's a good point.
That is a good use of waste, yeah.
Go and take it out.
So, after that, I then got out my spray cans. Oh. So, Prime Black Zenith with the Grey Seer. I went with the Grey Seer. Now, that's interesting for me because I was always a Wraithbone man. And I thought with doing skellies and stuff, I would go down the Wraithbone route, but I didn't because I didn't have any. So I went down the Grey Seer route, and I loved the final results of it. I'm a total convert to the Grey Seer. So
necessity is the mother of invention.
It really is. And
both rows look really small. Once you can actually see them, once they're not blowing out.
The thing is, I'm printing wood. I don't mind printing wood on an FDM machine because
stepping is not an issue. Stepping is
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know,
stepping is texture.
Stepping is a feature.
Yeah.
So I then modeled my skellies.
He's enjoying himself.
So if you go back, I don't know if there's so these are the guys that are doing the what do you call them things? Catapult.
It is a catapult. Yeah. I thought there was a counterweight on it, but there's not a big body weight.
No, there's skellies pulling on the back of it. So I modeled the skellies. These are all the Wargames Atlantic ones. And I modeled them and reworked them and stuff so they would be pulling ropes and pointing. And then that wee guy at the back, I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be hilarious if he forgot to let go?
Forgot to let go and it's just being...
And he's just being...
It's very Evil Dead.
Yeah. So he forgot to let go. He's hanging on for dear life. And then I think the other skellies then are all pointing at him. And then this is where I've started to just chuck some contrast paints down on them. And I just throwing paint at it. Literally throwing paint at it.
Speed.
Yes.
It's all about speed.
I may go in with a dry brush. But even if I missed a bit of his leg, you little shite.
Just in underneath.
I thought I'd got him.
This is one thing I discovered many, many moons ago. When you're painting stuff, white light is the ultimate because you can see every spot that you missed.
He's got his big arched light, though.
Yeah, this is all happening under my arch light.
Well, then he just screwed up.
Yeah.
Yes. There's lots of little nooks and crannies in these things. So I'm seeing an awful lot of grey actually when I look down in the edges of them wooden panels.
Never look back.
But do you know what? I think if I can find an old dirty down spray, I'll soon fix that. So, but yeah, I'm just keeping it simple, chucking it all together. So, and I think you might even see one of my. Oh yeah, there's another flash of the red.
Yep,
and
tearing off.
I'm pleased. The Wargames Atlantic stuff. I've done more skellies that haven't carried any weapons than I've done with skellies that are actually carrying weapons, and I've found them to be fairly flexible in terms of how I model them and put them down. So
they look well, especially whenever you're dropping them in as crew for stuff, because that's always if you're picking up a a bolt thrower, war machine, whatever it happens to be from somewhere, and it's for a different army, then you're always left with that, how am I going to crew it type of thing. And at least here, you're not having to worry about the fact that they're covered in armor or carrying shields or any nonsense like that. They look like they're doing the do.
Our random pleb number 3 that has been raised from the graveyard.
And let me just, I want to point out some stuff here on that particular picture, right? This is the get it done picture, because on the side of that Skelly's leg, you can still see a chunk of the sprue sticking to his leg. So just get it done. Nobody, honestly, when I chuck it down on the tabletop, it looks great, and I get to play with toys, and that's what it's all about for me now. I just want to play with some toys. So I'm really pleased with how they're coming on. I think once I've got the basing and all done right across the entire army, it'll be kind of interesting. So I have one more thing that I'm thinking of doing.
Yeah.
Okay. I had planned for my 2 catapults to be the centerpiece for the army. Okay. Yeah. And then I'd planned, well, maybe my whirlwinds coming out of my arse or my wizard's arse will be the centerpiece of my army. But I think I'm going to do them an oversized siege tower. Ooh. All of my armies, I normally printed them a tower. So my dwarves have a bit of terrain. They have a big piece of terrain, a big stone tower. For these guys, I was thinking if I could get a tower of skulls, maybe. But what I'm thinking of doing is actually, no, I'm just going to make them the biggest ass siege tower you've ever seen. So there is a siege tower that by our buddies at the Printable Scenery. And what I intend to do is to scale that up slightly and print a bunch of extra levels. So it's going to be the tallest, lankiest, kind of weird, held together with all sorts of bits of bone and stuff like that siege tower you've ever seen. I think that's going to be the centerpiece of this particular army, and that will round it out. That will be my project for the 2023 Spring Clean Challenge. So
do you have your Discord open?
Yes.
Well, here's the one from Printable Scenery I would use for them, Warren. I'll just pass it to Jerry there.
Pass it to me. Jumpers for goalposts.
Yes, well, by the medium of Discord.
Look at this. Looking stuff up as we go. It'll never catch on.
I like the look of that.
Stackable modular rune, bell tower, and sept.
Maybe.
I would like the idea of that. Because
it's a bit static. And I know all the rest of them all have towers that are static. But for this army, because of its focus on sieging, it's just I'm going to give it that siege tower on wheels, being pushed forward by, and maybe even dragged forward by a billion skellies, with ropes and the likes. So just something really weird and out there.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, it's something that honestly I would love to get back to doing, is printing out some of the stuff from the folks at Printable Scenery for gaming tables in the office.
You and John have an amazing 3D printer in the studio between you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can remember the login that we had for Printable Scenery.
Anyhow, I hope you guys at home don't mind. We wanted to shake the show up this week, so there'll be a little bit less of the other stuff going on. But I wanted to share some hobby with you. And, the Spring Clean Challenge, I missed it last year. And it happens to us all. Sometimes you're just not in the frame of mind for some of these kinds of things. But thankfully this year, it just clicked for me. And by making sure that I don't put pressure on myself. Like, I'm not, everybody gets different things out of the hobby. And I'm just here to say that it's okay to just go for okay. It's
perfect is the enemy of done.
Yes, that makes me happy. Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's all this hobby is about. Really, is about doing something that makes you happy. And whenever I'm finished with this project, I have two things. One is someday I will play a fantasy game with this. Someday. But until that day, I have a great big collection that will sit in a nice cabinet, and I can play around with some LED lights shining on bits and pieces of it here. And then whenever I'm role playing with my kids or whatever, I can go in and I can just grab an armful of stuff, and I can say, "Kids, tonight you're going to be taking on a siege tower, and here's how we're going to do it."
It's the way to do it,
and make it up. So
yeah, people need. If you want to get involved, you can win prizes.
Yes.
But just come over to OnTabletop.com. If you don't already have an account, make a free account. Go to the project system, which you'll find up here. You can go and have a look at previous year's entries or this year's entries, and then just create a project. Find something that's been kicking around, gathering dust, or you lost the urge after you built them all and haven't got around to priming them yet.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of stuff sitting in my house. I know,
something languishing away that's just been sitting staring at you from a shelf.
You've got months to complete it as well. And if you don't complete it, at least you have something out of it,
Progress is progress.
Don't need to get
Did you show the picture of how my whirlwind turned out?
I did. I showed the picture of how you...
Oh, the green one, yes.
Green whirlwind,
yes.
Yeah.
I was really pleased. And the interesting thing about that is that the step lines from FDM didn't really impact that one either, that print. No. So it turned out pretty good too. I
do like the idea of using it like a fanatic, though, because then it doesn't require any clever magical thing.
There's no I like that idea as well, because to me it was clearly a case of you unleash it and just let it do its thing, and it keeps going till it doesn't. Once because if you play it like a fanatic, once you hit a double, that's the point where it just piffs, runs out of wind, goes away. And who knows what devastation will be wrought before then. Yeah, and it gives that chaotic aspect to the whole thing. You can see an angry necromancer or something like that just going with his whirlwinds of doom. Also, Wicked Witches of the West will do that also. Right.
There was me thinking it might go like the spleen from Mystery Man.
Oh, no.
The weapons check.
On that note, I think we're going to take a quick swish. And we'll be right back.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay, we are back, and we're going to be taking a look at the news. And Adepticon is gone, but it is the gift that keeps on giving. Because after we went to our beds last week, Gale Force 9 announced that they've got the license to play in Star Trek. And the big news for them was the away missions, which is an interesting looking thing. A compact gang-based board game that will let you play out something akin to Warhammer Underworld. So the miniatures will come with a specific deck of cards as to how they act and work on the tabletop. The core set itself is Battle of Wolf 359, containing Lucutus of the Borg, and
Resistance is futile.
Yes, or everybody's favorite Picard with emo outfit on.
Yeah,
up against Commander Riker's away team, which contains Riker, Worf, Data, and Shelby. Not Beverly Crusher, as many people guessed. It's not that every away team needs a red shirt, but in this case, if you have one, you may as well use one.
Yes. I mean, I'm guessing the three main ones are probably kind of brutal.
Yeah, well, you've got Worf. You've got an android who spends his time beating Worf up every chance he gets. Yes. Right. As far as I remember from TNG, every other episode, Data went rogue and would beat up Worf. Worf's job, from what I can tell, right? Everybody knew he was a Klingon and a warrior, and therefore to show how great the threat was, if they could take down Worf in short order, then they were a terrible threat and really strong, and which meant Worf spent an awful lot of time on his backside.
Getting beat up, yeah.
Which, it's harsh but fair, I feel.
What do you think of the look? I really like it. I like the stylistic approach that they've taken to this. I like the art direction.
It's almost given me vibes of Lower Decks.
Well, this is the thing. They've gone for 40 mil or maybe 45 mil models because you've got a low model count. Apparently, when they looked at it initially, they were going to go for 28, and at 28 mil, you couldn't really see who was who, especially in the humans.
Yeah,
you've not really got any differentiation, and everybody in the Federation looks like they're wearing pajamas.
Yes.
So they've gone for a larger scale, and they've also gone for caricature. That's the bunny. Look, and I think that makes a lot of sense because as they expand from TNG into classics or into Discovery or into Lower Decks or any of those, they've all got their own unique style as far as the TV series goes, but then you've also got the possibility of playing around with the cartoon stuff. And if you've got an ultra realistic version, then you run into problems when you attempt to try and translate a cartoon onto the tabletop with other factions, because when you start playing these away missions, it's a 1v1 game. You're building your group, whoever it happens to be, but you're not tied to TNG only. When other stuff comes out down the line, you might want to throw Riker up against Zulu leading some sort of mad original crew, or the Gorns, or whatever else happens to come down the path in the future. So I quite like it.
You turned up and just went, snap. Let's have some fun.
That type of thing.
It also looks really collectible to me. I'm looking at it going, I'd love to have that, especially if I could paint them up roughly, and put them into a wee cabinet, and you have the whole Star Trek there in that cabinet.
Well, here's a question for you: who would be your ultimate away team, Warren? In fact, I'll ask everyone: who would be your ultimate away team?
Well, as you can see here, there's 2, 4, 6 of these tubes coming at you like Cleopatra, compared to 4 in Riker's away team. So it's not a standard away team size. You can have anything you want.
Yeah.
In which case, I would have Miles O'Brien leading, 150 red shirts.
For me, it would be Kirk, Riker, Troy. Probably you'll need a doctor as well. Bones. Yeah, Bones has seen it all, so he'll be able to help whatever transpires from that Kirk, Riker, Troy scenario.
Yeah.
And you could always have Scott Bakula in there as well, just leaping from place to place, trying to put right what once went wrong.
See, I would go Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Quark's Ferengi acquisition team with him, Nog, Rom, and the others.
For the Gold Press Latinum. I tell you what, my favorite Star Trek at the moment is the Strange New Worlds. So if I could play out some stuff, I would love to see Pike and some of his crew, because I'm really enjoying that.
It's probably only a matter of time.
Oh, it's super good. Super good. There's the Klingons. The Klingon sisters are in there. Yay.
The box set will launch with the 2 in the core set, but then there's also going to be 2 additional packs. So you're going to have Garon's team, which in any sort of way, shape, or form is just going to be a brutal, stabby warrior hammer.
Oh yeah.
Not a fine scalpel, just a huge chainsaw coming at you.
And if they're disarmed, they do have concealed weaponry in their uniforms.
If they're disarmed, they just headbutt you. Look at the heads on them. They'll do you some lasting damage. Seriously.
Star Trek teaches us you're all about the forehead.
Yeah, all about the forehead. And the other thing, and I was really, really happy to see this, is the Romulan expansion, which has got Commander Sella in it. Do you remember Tasha Yar?
Oh, yeah.
The original series.
Her daughter. Timey-wimey daughter, yeah.
Her Romulan, half Romulan hybrid daughter from the future type of thing. Is leading the Romulans, and they play.
I remember 1987, 1988 when I had a haircut just like that, and there
was nothing wrong with the Romulan bull cut.
I thought it's the melon cat now.
The melon cat as well, and the right color for it as well.
Yeah.
But I know you're saying about painting them up, and you could, especially comic book style, laying the characters.
Yeah, you could.
That sort of thing. But I like the fact that you can just grab the box, crack it open, and get plowed straight into it.
I tell you what, I really like the game tiles. I really like the exploratory nature of this. I'm looking forward to trying this game because, you're wandering around the deck there. There's operations, science, biology lab. This all looks really interesting to me. And it really, I'm interested to see where this goes, actually. Really interested to see where this goes. Because that game board has me absolutely intrigued.
It has a very next gen. The way they would always have stuff in the background. Their computer screens in the next gen, which all had these sort of yellow blue colors and that sort of flow. The 45-degree angles that are curved and stuff like that.
I mean, that's the Enterprise bridge.
Yeah,
that's the next gen bridge.
But the actual background does look like those computer screens, as if it's been lit up on one of the monitors.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It'll be interesting to see where it goes and whether or not, because I know Warhammer Underworlds has got a lot of fans behind the style and way the game plays and how you can customize your
gangs,
Underworld gangs with the deck that you use and the cards that you choose to include or drop out. And this has the potential to do that for a completely different genre. So you could have an awful lot of interesting combinations or changes over time as well.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing more about it and finding out what it's all about when it comes out. I believe in July is the aim for this at the moment. So
happy days. We're not too far away from that. Then
I'm still trying to figure out what my away team would be.
I just imagine.
Choice.
Are there many tanks?
No.
What were the three Data brothers? Lore,
Data, Lore, and
B. I think it was called B something.
I can't remember.
We just have those.
Behave, baby.
Honestly, my away team would have to be the likes of Riker, Yar. I'd throw Kirk in there just for badness.
I think the Riker Kirk combo. I think half the galaxy.
Half the galaxy knows.
They dropped Riker in as a first officer because he is essentially Kirk.
Yeah.
And the idea was, is this bald British guy drinking tea, being very dull, is he going to put people off? And if he was, then the idea was just kill him off, replace him with the Kirk clone. That was the idea behind the setup when they went to do the Next Generation. But more impressively, years later, Shatner wrote a Next Gen book with Kirk in it. And he gave backstory that didn't exist in the Next Generation. He made Riker one of, Khan's genetically engineered people. Yeah. So he made him a descendant of that. So he was super tough. And it was just a story about how the Enterprise had been taken over and how Kirk had to beat up all of the Next Gen crew to save the day. So it's just like, and then I beat up Data and then I beat up Worf.
Here's the thing. You can't have two Rikers, John.
Yeah, I know.
You can do double Riker.
Oh yeah, one with the beard, one without. Because of
you never go double Riker.
They did in the show.
As Q said, you were far less interesting before the beard,
Well, I'm thinking of his transporter club.
The transporter pad accident, where he got left behind in the buffer from that test.
Yeah.
I'm up to season 6 in Next Gen now. Like, when is there not a transporter incident?
Transporter incident.
Not often. It's mostly what things do these days.
Yeah.
Right. Leaving the far future. We're going to take a look at the relatively recent past, at least for Ireland anyway, so only 400 to 500 years ago. The Fighting Irish are coming from Flags of War to join their game of Border Wars. So last year / early this year, they ran a Kickstarter last year and then delivered it early this year for Under Reaver Moon, which is all about fighting between the English and Scots along the border marches. A lot of cattle raiding back and forth, a lot of brouhahas and that sort of thing. However, it's that period of time where there was also a bit of raiding back and forth from Ireland and also then the Tudor sort of and Elizabethan conquests of Ireland. So you had all sorts of stuff going on. To that end, they've thrown in some Irish. So you can now play English against the Scots, English against the Irish, Irish against the Irish, do a bit of clan wars, whatever you want. So this is a little packlet, a warband-esque, for your games of Border Wars. Small, perfectly formed, commanded by the O'Neill, which is probably the fellow responsible for Flight of the Earls, Hugh, looking dramatic.
Now, is that
very dashing?
Tunbridge O'Neill, or is that Limavady O'Neill?
This would be Dungannon, I think.
Dungannon O'Neill.
Right. He was clan chief at the time, so they were all bowing down to him. He managed to annoy quite a lot of people over his time.
So he was the All-Neil.
Oh dear. Anyway, apart from the majestic mounted man, who's only on that pony so he can ride off very quickly towards Spain when things go horribly wrong, there's also a set of 3 Galloglass. So Galloglass were the Norse mercenaries, Hiberno Norse, Norse Gael, whatever you want to call them, who pretty much went Daenax helmet and chainmail. Yeah, that's fine. And we'll stay with that for the next 600 years. Development warfare, you say? I've got a big axe. Okay. Okay, then we'll get the occasional claymore in there just to mix it up a bit. But mostly, mostly they spent their time. They spent their time battering the ever-living hell out of everybody. Apparently, the English were quite confused when they arrived to discover that there appeared to be some sort of Viking Daenax-wielding lunatics were still very much part of warfare, and then they charged and went, "Oh my God, this all gone horribly wrong." So yeah, they are the sort of the elites, the bodyguard for a lot of nobility in Ireland at this period, and they sort of come with their own squires to carry their stuff and do a little bit of light skirmishing on the side. So alongside them, you get the sort of the kerns, so bow and javelin based, and even just sword and spear or sword and shield, sword and board, as the man says. So it's a really nice set of figures. They have there's a famous drawing of Galloglass and kerns by a German illustrator from about early 1500s, 1510, 1512, something like that, Albrecht Dürer. And Dürer's little sort of hand-drawn illustration has been replicated many times over the years by various companies because it's just so quintessential. There were some Galloglass mercenaries wandering around, probably Germany, might have been Switzerland at the time, who knows, they get everywhere. So things like the claymore wielding guy is one of those, definitely, in this cairn with the sort of Lochaber style axe in the center is another that comes sort of from that picture. So it's a really nice set of sculpts, and I like Flags of War tend to do one-piece metals. The idea is you stick it down and you're good to go. Not loads of fiddly little pieces like shields and spears may have to be glued on, or in the case of that horse and rider, you may find that the rider's separate and the horse is missing a leg, type of thing for casting. But they're very nice sculpts, very clean and go together beautifully. I know, because I backed the Kickstarter and I've got a rake of Border Wars sitting behind me somewhere. I was going to try and find it for the show, but
good luck.
No, not going to happen here. But yeah, they're on pre-order at the moment, and the Border Wars under Reaver Moon is an interesting little set of rules where you can just do sort of narrative skirmishing, spend your time stealing cattle, and then your friend tries to steal it back again. All the while, peasants are poking you with pitchforks as you come too close to their property. So it's good. It's good to keep people on their toes, I feel.
Fantastic.
Right, next up, an expansion. An expansion for Blood and Valour, actually. So, if you're not a Cult of Games member, this week we've actually started doing a Blood and Valour vlog because we're putting together a couple of World War I armies for Blood and Valour by Firelock Games. So it's a World War I skirmish game. So we're just starting working on some Germans and the French as well. However, with Adepticon, see, the gift that keeps on giving, I'm telling you, they've released a expansion. I say expansion. It really does expand. It fills the room, so to speak. It's called The End of Empires. And the main rulebook for this is about 110 pages. This expansion is about 210 pages. It's an expansion with attitude. So there's a lot going on in this. Essentially what they've done, the original book gave you Western Front and a few other little sort of lists to build from, sort of mid to late war. So, 1915, 1916 onwards is sort of what you're looking at. With the End of Empires, they went back and went, you know what, we need to add a few more bits and pieces to this. And so they did. They added Italy against Austro-Hungary. So you've got the Italian sort of southern flank. They added Japan and China. So you've got the armies that fought there, Chinese warlords, Japanese for the Japo-Russian Sino war type thing over there. They added the Eastern Front, so you can do your Russians and Germans and Austro-Hungarians there as well. So they sort of filled all the gaps for World War I that were missing. And then they went completely off book. The reason it's called End of Empires is a lot of countries obviously have various colonies or other territories that they owned, and then during World War I, the massive First Great War, they found that they could no longer contain them, hold them, cling on to them because their power was sort of devastated. So they then went in and have added lists for all sorts of things that occurred during or after the First World War. So where it was essentially a contributing factor, the big one being the fall of the Russian Tsar. About a third of the book, it's like 70, 80 pages, are lists for the white and red armies, the Bolshevik armies, the armies, peasants' armies, the Ukrainian armies, all of these revolutions that occurred throughout this massive country where there were so many territories held by the Tsar. Huge amount of detail there. I think Rufus and Kai got some support from guys in Europe who sort of know all about the background and details there, because there's just so much going on just in the Russian area sphere of influence. So it's like I say, like a third of the book is all about all of the stuff that kicked off there. And then there's like 3 pages for the Irish Revolutionary War, the Irish War of Independence. So you've got the Royal Irish Constabulary with the Black and Tans and the IRA, or Irish Volunteers, IVF, as they were at that stage. So you can do your flying columns, you can do your GPO, that sort of thing as well. So it's really interesting that they've gone and went, well, here's this, expand upon it as you will. And then they've also added in extra bits and pieces. So there's things like weather, so how that can have an effect on games. And it's a very small, it's like a little table going, it reduces command or reduces firing effectiveness, things like that. But I was also looking at going, well, it's a good jumping off point that this is the sort of idea for weather with fog and rain. Yeah. But you could start going, well, how would snow affect it, and how would ice affect movement and things like that? I like it as a jumping off point because you can just start to go, they've given you a ton more new special rules as well. There's a really nice one I haven't seen who belongs to yet, because obviously certain lists will have certain units and forces, but there's a deserter special rule where if you can stagger enough fatigue onto a unit, there's a chance that your opponent can get them on his side. So he can spend a command point, make a roll, shake off a bit of fatigue, and then they desert to him. At which point you're left.
That's cool.
So when you've got these, and it'll be tied to historically accurate periods, or there'll be specific people in there where it's like maybe they've been press ganged, didn't want to be fighting, and you know what? Now they're not going to be fighting for you, but they're going to make sure that they get off there. So it gives you that sort of interesting concepts, things I wouldn't think about including in a standard sort of war game, but quite good for narrative play and for exploring other areas around the sort of the start of the 20th century, which is cool. And then a whole Galvey bucket load of new vehicles and armored cars and stuff like that as well, so you can kind of do donuts around the place. So I like it. It sets things up nicely for the interwar period, and you can sort of expand upon it therein as well. a few little tweaks for the main rule books if you want to use them. If you want to do full cavalry forces, there's now options to stick your command on a horse or add a bagpiper as a musician to your command section to let people know that you're coming. It also helps your commander out, when he's giving orders and stuff. But not worry about that. It's mostly about the bagpiping, which is why I'm here. So it's currently, they sold out of everything they brought to Adepticon. I don't think it's made its way to Europe yet, although I've pre-ordered it from gaming shop in England. But you can buy the PDF right now if you can do the scrolly thing with one of those tablet things. That's how that works, as far as I'm aware anyway. If not, you can just hold your wish and you'll be able to get, like I say, 200 odd pages, big bumper book of First World War fun. And I'm looking forward to playing the tunnel fighting scenario where you're trying to set mines off below the trenches. They've got like a shrunk in version, a skirmish of the skirmish, where they go down to sort of single figures and you're fighting blind in the tunnels below the Somme and the
nice
Western Front.
I really want to build like a modular table where you can just pull out sections as you mine towards each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. I mean, obviously you've got that fog of war thing going on. I haven't read through the full system yet, or the full scenario rather, because they've added a bunch of narrative scenarios and a bunch of just sort of balanced, I'm going to bring 200 points, you bring 200 points, and we'll play here because that's a balanced scenario, whereas the narrative ones are more kind of, you may be at a disadvantage type of thing. So there may be some form of blip counter or, that type of thing going on with it. I will find out. Not right now, because we're filming the show, but I will find out and I'll let you know. Time will tell.
Fantastic.
Anyway, yes. We have in final bit of news, just a little teeny tiny one. Little sousson to finish the news, and that is Salute is coming.
Yes.
Salute is going to be 50 years old this year, and as such, they're going to be having a big Galvy bucket load of fun at the Salute. We will be there. Sans Justin, unfortunately.
Yes, I'm not going to lie, I am super disappointed to miss Salute this year.
Well, you should be. You should be. You're going to miss out on this figure.
Oh, come on, please bring me one back.
Well, we'll see, because last year, or what was it last year? The year before? I can't even remember. The last time we went to Salute, I completely forgot to buy anything. I just didn't have time. Spent all my time wandering around the place trying to see what was going on.
Yeah, looking at all the gorgeous gaming tables.
If I can get near it, I will. This was somebody showing off how they paint. I think it was Kev, actually. Kev painted normally and then painted with contrast, just to show what you can do with it. But I really like him. I like the fact that to celebrate their anniversary, they've gone with somebody who is celebrating having all the wealth in the world. But there's going to be so much going on at Salute itself this year. Apart from the usual vendors, I think there's like 120 vendors going to be there. There's also going to be 90 plus gaming tables or games have been put on. So you can take your pick of a whole host of games over the day to see what you fancy playing, or check out some new bits and pieces as well. But they've also got a load of, not scenarios, got some scenarios on the brain right now. They're going to be having actual chats, so panel chats this year, where you can go in and check out things like building battlefield terrain or secrets of games design, where they're going to be pulling in the great and the good from across the sort of the industry, so people can see these sort of panels and check them out and see what's going on, which I've never seen them do it at Salute before, because normally Salute is one hall. So I don't know if they're going to be cubbied off somewhere, or if they're going to be in the hall on like some sort of stage, or, we'll see how that's going to happen. But they've got 5 of these panels running throughout the day, so you'll be able to get involved and see what's happening with those, and of course see us. It's only 3 weeks away. Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Shocking, absolutely shocking. So you can get your tickets in advance, or you can turn up on the day and try and find Ben, Shay, and myself. Buy us drinks. Please buy me drinks. That is the key.
I see. As soon as I don't turn up, he's organising stuff. He's off doing other things.
Always.
Misbehaving.
100%. I mean, why would I not be doing it? Peachy will be with us as well this year. as he generally is, to keep an eye on all the painting stuff and painting competition. So yes, we will be there, and we'll be talking to everybody we can, filming as much as we can, and bringing that to you the week after when we get back to bring you up to date if you're unable to make it to Salute. But if you can, you really should.
Yeah.
It's an impressive event from the South London Warlords, and definitely worth checking out. Right. That's me done for the news.
Awesome.
Go away now. Okay, we're back to round off this week's show with some 3D printing. It is, I believe, the shit. That's what they tell me.
Totally is. It totally is. I am really getting back into it, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we've got this week.
Well, we're going all continental. And this isn't because I've started doing 2 World War II armies, or sorry, World War I armies. Although it may have something to do with the fact that we're doing World War I armies.
I don't see anything to do with World War I here.
No.
Nothing suspicious here.
Nothing suspicious. Move along, people. Move along. So yeah, especially whenever I seen the End of Empires and all the armored cars, it was like, I wonder who does all the armored cars for World War One. So this was, I think, a Kickstarter. Although obviously Alphonse Marcel has been doing 3D printing things for a while now. A whole host of stuff from, funky bits to print out and chess sets and stuff. I quite like the steampunk chess set, it has to be said. The free model as well is some sort of boppy steampunk robot, which I think is always good, clean family fun. So, if you're into your chess and you want to do something a bit avant-garde, a little bit different, then obviously you can do that. However, it's really the total war destruction. That's what we're here for. That's why we're all involved. So the idea behind this was to put together a range of World War I vehicles that could be used for dioramas, used for gaming, in 28mm scale, but to have them before and after. So if there's a intact Renault, then there's a knocked out Renault. Planes, French ambulance with, oxen pulling it or horse pulling it, whatever it happens to be. They're all there in various states of alive or deadness. And I like the fact that you could jump in and just get the bits you need or the bits you want. Or obviously, pick up the pair, so you've got the knocked out version for the tabletop if it gets knocked out in game, which is always fun. I also like the fact that when he popped on the website, he went to the hassle of printing everything and doing it. So we have here, as you can see, a host of stuff from the British Mark I to your French ambulance, your Renault, some downed planes. There's a whole lot going on. Unfortunately, if memory serves, the pictures don't get particularly bigger. Oh no, I've picked one thing that isn't working on that, which is a shame because I want to see the downed planes. No, shame. What are we saying? The down tractor?
The tractor is kind of a cool looking piece.
Tractor is a cool looking piece. Let's see if that one opens for me. That one opens for me. It's nice like that. You can see your clean tractor, your destroyed. So each one of these files is, I believe, both. You get your clean and destroyed in it, or it might just be a clean and then clean and destroy. That's right. That's good. I'm there. We're here. Don't worry about it. Move on, folks. But yeah, the range is substantial. I want to say there's 60 vehicles done for this, plus a whole host of additional bits. We'll see the additional bits in a moment because there's some weird stuff going on with the additional bits that are probably more for your modeler, although I can still find a use for them. But yeah, things like the Bussing 5AP armored car. Poor fella, his legs have come off. You two can bounce things on a print bed. The interesting thing, he said, clicking on this. Here we go. So you have all the variety of soldier surrendering, as well as some casualties as well. And I was looking at these going, well, probably more for diorama, but you have fatigue in Blood and Valor, where you're counting up how many fatigue you have. When you have 4, you're shaken or whatever. And having maybe, some surrender figures at the back instead of, just casualty, because often you'll see casualty markers or tokens like that where it's just dead people. But I like the idea of maybe putting a few shaken ones in just for surrender. Or maybe when you hit that, I think when you hit 4 fatigue and Blood and Valor, you automatically are shaken and start to retreat. At that point, stick a surrendering guy so that you know that unit is broken. They're not dead. They may come back, but you've got the whole look of it. And
I like that idea.
Yeah. It's an unusual set. You don't often see surrendering figures. Obviously, there's casualty markers left, right, and center, but actual just...
I've had enough for today. Yeah. Hands in the air.
Yeah. This is a terrible place and I don't want to be here anymore. I'd very much like to go away now. Thank you. Which is a great way of doing it. If we go back to here, there's my French ambulance.
Oh, the horses.
With the dead horses. Unfortunately, I don't think they're in live horses for the clean version. They're already dead, or maybe they're just having a sleep. Although I'm fairly certain horses don't sleep lying down. Completely knackered. Having a long think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a really, really cute little set of figures. I need to have some tanks, because if I don't have tanks, John will probably kill me.
He will beat you.
So obviously the British...
It really is a nice touch having both versions there, isn't it? It's...
And the fact that when you see the knocked out ones, they're not just, here's a hole in the side.
Yeah.
It's
like tracks off, all sorts of things,
Yeah, this thing is fully ruined.
They're completely buggered, yeah.
Yeah, you've gone on holiday by mistake at that point. So it's
I always found this part of history interesting when tanks were first becoming a thing.
The land ships. Yeah.
It's a daft time in history, especially the French tank project.
Oh, not this one, but the massively long
Schneider. The Saint-Chamond and the
Saint-Chamond.
Yeah, wasn't that the one that had like a 6-foot overhang from the front of the tracks?
Yes,
on each end. Yeah.
So it was very bad at crossing trenches, which is kind of what they needed to do.
Which I find hilarious because they have them in that All Quiet in the Western Front remake on Netflix. They have them ducking down into trenches and then climbing back out again, and I'm like, no, they don't do that.
They couldn't do that. Yeah,
look at that. The AV7, like.
Yeah,
I know with the internals. Yeah,
nice.
Was that a field gun that I saw on the previous page there, Jerry?
There are 2 field guns on the previous page, or field gun / mortar. So we've got some cannon.
And the mortar.
And again, various flavors of field gun.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, because
it does show you that we hadn't come massively on from Napoleon's time by the time World War One came around. And the development between World War One and World War Two is incredible. And then the development since then, it's...
humanity just sort of ramped it right up in short order. But you can see there the mortars and the trench mortars. Really, really nice touch. Again, trench mortars have just been added to Blood and Valor. Not that I'm spending a lot of time reading Blood and Valor at the moment. Trench mortars are a thing now. And if I could get some, John, trench mortars, we could have trench mortars in our trench mortar.
Yep.
Although, aren't you still looking for a sniper?
I'm still looking for a sniper as well. But if I couldn't get a sniper, I'll take a mortar in short order. Yeah.
High explosive
Can you not just model a tree with a little hatch on it?
Oh, well, yeah.
That's accurate to World War One.
That is accurate too, yeah. Just get a stump. So apart from the World War One collection, which, like I say, bar the fact that I can't see the planes, which I'm gutted about, because then you could have Flash Heart. Copped a packet sausage side.
Woof.
Thought I stepped in a bush. There's also a few tutorials here, and I thought these would be interesting for you people who do the 3D printing, because I obviously don't and have little or no knowledge / care for it. However, there's here's a 3-minute video about how you change the scaling, and it's not just a case of going
how you can magnify the details so that wee hands and all don't fall off.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's actually this is starting with like something that's scaled for like 1/35th, so a much bigger scale piece, and then over accentuating everything through, I think it's called Mesh Mixer. Yeah,
Mesh Mixer.
Yeah. And sort of ambigulating all the details so that when he then reduces it down to 20 mil, it's still the details are still visible, and it's also printable. So I mean, there at 1/35th, you're going, well, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. But if you took that down to 15 mil.
But if I pop to here later on, so it's a very short tutorial. You're not missing anything because there's no voiceover. There's just that little bits of text pop up from the subtitles. But I thought this is something you don't often see with 3D printers. Certainly, the ones we tend to look at finished articles all the time.
Yeah.
And so there's this, and there you see dropping into like a 28 mil figure. It doesn't look as grossly over exaggerated. And again, if you drop it down to the 20 mil or 15 mil, so it's something I hadn't heard about. I don't know, because I hear you and Lloyd talk about Blender and stuff like that all the time, but I've never heard of Mesh Mixer, whatever it is, or however it's used. So it's an interesting.
I'll definitely check that out.
Mini tutorial, and then also he dropped one in for how to make a 3D model, and this was fascinating. So he's decided this is how he made a 20 mil 3D model. This isn't a professional idea. That he's going, professionals, don't worry about this. This is for people at home who have a 3D printer and want to start doing their own modeling. So he's actually just scanned in a side, a plan, and a front view of this armored car, registered them on the 3 axes in the right sort of height and proportions, and then just starts extruding shapes to fill those plans, which is mind-blowingly genius to me. I hadn't ever thought, but there's so many books out there where you can find, especially for tanks and armored cars and vehicles,
finding all the elevations on the diagrams.
All you need are those 3 plan schematics.
Yeah.
He does. There's a voiceover on this one, which I've muted so I can actually talk to you guys without having to shout over myself. He talks about adding detail, and again, this has been done for 20 mil. So he's going, you need to over exaggerate this piece so that it's visible in 20 mil when you print it, and over exaggerate this piece so that it's sturdy enough to print. So he gives you little tips like that. It's a 5-minute video that essentially teaches you to 3D sculpt your first vehicle from 3 black and white drawings. And again, means nothing to me, Vienna, but for people messing around with a 3D printer or getting into it or starting to explore what they can and can't do, it's an interesting concept of not just going, I need to find somebody who's already done it. Maybe you can find a way of doing it yourself, and maybe starting with a whole model is probably not your first step. Obviously, you've done bases and stuff in the past and cut bits out and things like that, but I just find this fascinating. Just the whole idea behind it and how he goes about doing it over a ridiculously short amount of time, it has to be said. And then if I skip to the end, he shows supporting it all, and then finally finishes off with, here it is printed and ready to go.
Did the thingy thing.
Yeah. So 2 little interesting tutorials sort of tucked away on the back of a site, just kind of living their best life there. And I think it's is that with the nail polish? It's really, really interesting way of approaching 3D printing as well.
It is super good.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice to see the process. Really nice to see the process.
I thought it'd be interesting for you because you're bound to have front, side, and plan views of a lot of vehicles, John. So I expect you to start throwing things into Blender tomorrow and just start pulling. So the Weekender's late. It's because John's just started to print out all the tanks. I've never had one of these.
One Mark variant that's incredibly rare that no one has made a miniature of yet.
Yeah.
Right. Have we got a couple of Kickstarters this week then, Jerry?
We have a pair. We have a little brief one just to get things started.
Uh-huh.
So a few weeks ago, we looked at a Indie of the Week. A few weeks ago, might have been a month or so ago, which is a atomic punk or retro punk sci-fi called Counterblast, at the miniature game.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gone to Kickstarter to do a RPG setting for it, for the Savage Worlds core set. So it is very much your Flash Gordon, your Dan Dare, your Buck Rogers in the 20th century, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's 1950s on Earth, and the aliens have arrived. And there's a whole slew of them. So you've got the book itself is going to be a supplement for Savage Worlds as a core system. They are working on the premise that Savage Worlds are having a sci-fi companion that's going to be coming. So this should be compatible with that as well. But I really enjoyed looking at that setting when we looked at the Indie of the Week with the weird and wacky aliens and that very 1950s retro aesthetic for your rocket ships and things like that when you're off fighting Ming the Merciless in space, or where you're being attacked by, space sharks or space precinct things, or the eyeball stalks on heads aliens. So there's, half a dozen alien races, sentient ones that you can sort of play through. There's going to be the various mechanics for Savage Core to expand it into the retro sci-fi setting. If you've not played the Savage Worlds set, it's a fairly standard-ish set of polyhedral dice. They've got some interesting mechanics in Savage Core because it's very fast and punchy. You've got exploding dice in all the facets as an option when you're playing through. So when you're doing traits, you always got the option for like D8, D6, D20 to just keep rolling and rolling and rolling, so you can do spectacularly well. But at the same time, they've got some limiting factors. So if something happens to go completely off book, you're not going to be one-shotted by an alien. There's like a cap on how much wound you can take at one time. But I just really like the Counterblast aesthetic and style. I really love the squiddly brain aliens. Votann, the whole backstory and lore that they've put together is great, and the style that they have for their artwork and illustrations is absolutely stonking as well. Now, I will preface this with it is mostly aimed at America, because anybody who's attempted to ship anything from America recently has seen how much the cost is. So they're not shipping physical product outside the US, which is a shame, because one of the things you can get is a classical tin lunchbox with battle foam inserts for the miniatures if you get the physical version, and I wanted it so much. However, if you are outside the US, you can get a completely digital version, so you can get the PDF and you can get the digital STL files of the miniatures to print yourself, and then hopefully we'll be able to see these outside the US of A in a physical form from like local vendors. But as you can see, they've got an interesting squad if you want to play RPGs incorrectly with miniatures.
Is that a free miniature?
That is Brack Maxter, yes. This lovely double-breasted suit, which I'm assuming is in some sort of garishly bright color that you can't see because this episode's in black and white. But if you were in the studio audience, you'd be going, "Oh my god,
it's blinding!"
Fluorescent pink, yellow, and green. Who thought these were good colors? But,
the lunch tin does look. I was gutted, absolutely gutted when I seen this.
But the idea is obviously get your hands on the whole history and background of their universe, where aliens came to us in the 50s, and occasionally we go to them in our rocket ships and do all the Lord's own work in the stars. But it's very much of that Saturday morning serial style, thwack, smack, and punch your way to strength, happiness, and freedom. The Counterblast has gone through second edition now in the skirmish game, so they've already got a lot of the lore and stories built up, and this just layers more into that. So you've got this sort of universe developing. You can also grab the Savage Worlds core sort of starter rules for free, and a little test scenario as well if you want to see what the game plays like and whether or not it's for you. But I thought it was just a really nice little retro sci-fi game, and I'm glad to see them expanding from just miniatures into the RPG side. So yeah, good times to be had by all, with a retro ray gun in your hand and some squid-faced aliens coming at you like Cleopatra. There is 14 days left on that. So
funded or no?
Not funded yet, but I'm hoping it will, because otherwise I won't get it.
Yeah, this is definitely a cool one.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun to be had with it, but not as much fun as the next Kickstarter, which I was told I had to include, or John would beat me to within an inch of my life, and I bruised like a peach, so I couldn't let that happen. So there's
did he not have the bag of Satsumas to hand?
Thankfully not yet.
It's
Battletech Mercenaries.
Holy hell. 3.8 million.
Oh, yeah.
I will definitely have to mute that. So, Battletech then, Mercenaries, the second Kickstarter, and apparently it's blown up slightly. So much so that from what I heard, Catalyst went to Adepticon last week expecting to come back and go, oh, look at our Kickstarter. And they blew through every stretch goal that they'd come up with while the people were at Adepticon, leaving a lot of people going, where are the next stretch goals? And Catalyst going, there's nobody in the office.
Oh my God, what have we done?
They it got to the point where I've obviously backed this. It got to the point where on day one, within the first 10 hours of the Kickstarter running live, there was 8 emails in my inbox saying Kickstarter update because they were just going, we don't know what we're doing. Holy crap, thank you so much. And then they were like, okay, here's some stuff. Okay, you've bought all that. Here's some more stuff. Okay, you've bought all that. And they were coming out straight away in their communications going, we did not expect you to blow through every stretch goal in the first 3 hours. We're sorry, and we're working on it. 2 of our guys are at Adepticon. They're currently trying to ask questions to the guys in charge to say, what do we do next, boss? So at least they were being open and honest about it. They were saying, like, we have had a panic here because we don't know what to do now.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's a good problem to have.
It's a good and bad problem because we've seen Kickstarters that in the past have overpromised.
Well, that's true, yeah.
You know, and I started to worry a little bit because as more stuff got added on, I was like, is this going to delay delivery or is this stuff they're already working on, sort of thing?
Yeah. And honestly, do you even need to add more whenever you've blown through every stretch goal you had planned for?
Well, what they've ended up kind of doing is taking the existing stuff and saying, okay, we can expand on that by giving you the next wave of stuff early. So the stuff that's already like 70% in the planning stage or in the design stage, you'll get that as part of your, you know, depending on what pledge level you're at, you'll get that early. It works. There's the Battletech UK community are very happy about all this sort of stuff because it's very hard for us, as we just mentioned, to get stuff out of the US. So there's a lot of UK people have jumped on board with this because it's not going to be handled in the same way as per shipping as their store site is, because their store site only uses FedEx.
And so you're damned.
You're really screwed over through that. So hopefully this distribution, and they've also mentioned UK and EU distribution this time as well for this Kickstarter.
So they're setting up some hubs?
Yeah, so there will be some hubs available now, which makes it a bit more accessible. But the success of this has been unreal. It was more than what they expected. It blew apart the Clan Invasion Kickstarter that they ran last time. So,
but I mean, we have seen a massive resurgence of Battletech in recent years.
Huge.
Well,
absolutely huge.
That's a point then for people who are unaware, because Battletech is in a weird position where it's incredibly old. It's older than Justin and John
combined.
That's not that old.
But
I know, I'm joking.
But at the same time, it's almost like a niche part of the hobby that all of a sudden has become massive. So there's going to be people going, what in the wide world of sports is Battletech? And I suppose hard sci-fi.
It's but the way to kind of get the taste of it is Game of Thrones in space. You've got big houses all controlling certain parts of the galaxy that kind of work together, but not really. You have what you would say in Star Trek terms, like the Federation would have been what started it all, like what's expanded the galaxy out, and then after a while they had a schism inside that, so some of them buggered off with a guy called Kerensky, who comes back later on in the lore with the clans, so that's the clan invasion kind of thing. But apart from that, you get these big houses that are controlling resources and militaries and factories and stuff, and they'll trade between each other or have a fight with each other because someone else will have something they want. And then in the middle of this, you get these mercenaries, which is what this Kickstarter is all about. So you have, like we would have today, you have proxy wars. Well, major houses don't want to be seen to be fighting each other. So what will happen is mercenaries will be hired and sent, or hired, equipped, and then sent out to do the dirty work of someone else.
Plausible deniability.
Plausible deniability. The biggest appeal of Battletech initially for me was the big giant stompy robots, because I'd seen the cartoon series when it came out in the 90s, which is horrendous, and it's all on YouTube and it's still horrendous. But beyond that, when I started to get into it last year with the Catalyst releases, I was getting into the lore and finding out about how the noble houses worked, how the militaries were taken from the nuclear edge, because in Battletech, nuclear warfare had happened, and everybody as a collective in the human sphere went, we can't afford to do that to every planet again. We want.
Yeah. Naughty.
So there's these big overarching, like the Geneva Conventions, there's these big conventions that reduce and restrict the amount of things you can have in a war, in war and all that sort of stuff. Then they develop what are called labor mechs. So you get like JCB, literally JCB building stuff, building robots that help make buildings and stuff like that. And then someone says, hey, why don't we put a gun on
What if we strap all the rockets to its head?
Yes.
What's really cool, the more you delve into the lore, is the plausibility of it, because unlike 40K and a lot of other high sci-fi stuff, there's a break between what we know as technology that can exist and what happens in 40K. But in Battletech, it really is an extension of what we know and what we've developed. So artificial muscles, myomer muscles are called in Battletech, are what power these big mechs. These aren't all just mechanical things. These are using technology that in the past 5 or 6 years we've been putting
start to be
research
produced.
Yeah. So there is that lovely mesh of what we know today and what Battletech offers you as a potential future, which makes it really fascinating to get into.
It's the lore side, because I have friends who are massive into their Battletech, and you literally had books that said, Battletech 3037. And so the rule set would be, it was almost like playing a historic war game, because that brought you up to that year, which meant that the mechs and stuff that are developed down the line, they don't exist in this period. So you're playing that time period. And there were different books with different year sort of brackets on them. I don't know if they still have that, because that's the original Battletech from way back in the day. But the idea that you can pick a specific point in time, you can pick before the clan invasion, therefore you're not going to see any of the filthy clanners.
Yeah.
And you can see here some of the lore that their 16-page primer to give you an idea of what's going on. But this
nice to have something like that.
But this Kickstarter then also adds flyers and AFVs as well.
Yeah, so it adds aircraft and tanks and APCs and stuff like that to Alpha Strike, which is the pickup game sort of style of it. It's the more sort of what we would consider a typical war game. It's classic Battletech is 3 or 4 miniatures per side.
Yeah.
Alpha Strike can be 20, 30 miniatures or 40, 50 miniatures per side, and it's a much faster system. It gets you into the feel of it without
bogging you down in the detail. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't care so much about which part of the mech has been hit when you take a shot, like Classic does, or it doesn't worry about heat buildup as much as Classic does, that sort of thing.
Do you have to run through your gator?
No, you don't. You run through, is it TTS or TTR, something like that. It's how you evaluate a target when you attack something. So there's Alpha Strike is very cool to play. It gives you the feel, it gives you the idea of it, lets you paint a lot of models, because of course us today now, we're more collectors than we are anything else, so we have a desire for a lot of models. So yeah,
and there's such a breadth of different mech types in here.
There is the mech types alone, never mind vehicles, aircraft, infantry, all that sort of stuff. The mech types alone are insane. There's maybe, if I remember my Mech Warrior Online game, there's maybe 120 different mechs, and each of them have 8 or 9 variants, which are all lore accurate, which are all lore correct. they all exist in the lore in some form or another. So there's an absolute plethora of stuff to dig into.
There's a ridiculous amount of pledge levels from $15 up to $5,000.
Yep, the big kappas are all sold out.
That's
40
that's
people
frightening.
in the world have spent $5,000 on this. I don't blame them.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things. If you could do it yourself, you would.
Mm-hmm.
There's the stretch goal. So
Yeah,
even though this is aimed at alpha, there's still hex maps a go.
Yeah, plenty of hex maps.
Because you can play Alpha Strike on the hex maps like classic anyway, or you can play it with edges and on a base tabletop.
If you play Alpha Strike on the hex maps, you're getting your mech facings a bit more correct. That aids with the facing of the mechs, but you can play Alpha Strike on a standard table, which Shay and I have played in here a few times now. So
Irby Derby's on its way.
Derby.
They've absolutely knocked that one out of the park. It's suffice to say, I think if you're interested in getting involved, it's probably a good way of doing it. There is a bit of a wait before they are due to actually deliver it. So what are we looking at next year?
June. They were saying June next year, but they'd said before the Kickstarter really blew up, they kind of said we were going to be able to deliver within 7-8 months rather than the full 12.
They know how they've done it last time round, so now they've ironed things out. I imagine they've given themselves wiggle room, which is probably just as well, considering how it has blown up.
Well, I mean, they're making roughly twice the amount they were expecting to.
Well, that'll keep people out of trouble anyway.
The Clan Invasion Kickstarter, the Clan Invasion Kickstarter had 12,000 backers, and this is up to 16, 17 now. So they have a lot of extra logistics to worry about.
It's a brave new world, and it's a very, very old one. I'm as a crusty bearded old man, I'm very happy.
Best thing is,
very happy.
Best thing is, there's no aliens to worry about in Battletech. It's all just humans kicking the crap.
Just
out
dudes.
Just dudes kicking the crap out of you.
Horrible humans.
There you go. Funded. Oh, boys have funded, and there are 20 days left if you fancy a bit of B-Tech in the future, and hopefully in the future we'll see it in more stores around the world as well, so it'll be a bit easier for people to lay their hands on. I think that's enough for this week. I'm all spent. I've got to go and lie down now. Just as well we're not here next week.
I'm going to sleep for a week.
Yeah. If that is too far, if 2 weeks is too much for you, come over on Sunday morning to OnTableTop.com. Join us for a Cult of Games XLBS, where we have a guest. Ooh. You're intrigued now, I can see it. You can have a 30-day trial and join us and see what we're waffling about. Otherwise, we will see you post-Easter when I've eaten all my eggs. Until then, enjoy your gaming.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.